Hi, everybody. I am Wendy Silvers, and this is my master series interviews. And I'm so over the moon right now. I just can't even contain myself because I have loved and admired from afar this woman for decades, right? So I'm giving you a little clue of my potential belly button age. And Dr. Christiane Northrup is a OBGYN, a physician, a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, and authority on how you can do everything right. She is a mom, she's a grandma, she is just an amazing woman, and the newly updated and revised 5th edition is coming out of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Christiane Northrup. Thank you for being here this morning. I am just so delighted that you are here. And we were having a little bit of a chuckle before we got on because if you can't laugh, you're going to end up crying.
Yes, yes, indeed, yes.
And not move. And I would love for you to talk about how, as a medical doctor, I know that spiritual awakenings don't just happen once, they continually happen. But was there something that had you go, okay, wait, there's got to be more than this, or were you always like that?
I was like it from childhood because of my childhood experiences and the fact that I had two people, a sister, a brother, and then my father, sign out of the hospital against medical advice with really critical conditions. So I saw what people were able to do. My aunt and uncle were both medical doctors. My dad was a dentist, and he believed in vitamin C. My mother spiked our orange juice with vitamin C. We had organic food from Walnut Acres. We ate whole grains. We had a compost heap. We grew our own food. We had a pond we fished in. So I grew up kind of being called a health nut by the aunt and uncle who were medical doctors. However, we all had Thanksgiving dinner together. So the truth of the matter is I've always loved medicine. I've loved my colleagues. I like the whole thing. And what we need here is a renaissance to bring in the microbiome, to get over our fear of death, because that's what's driving this whole thing. People terrified that they're going to get something and die. And then, of course, a mainstream narrative that feeds off the fear, like somebody would be addicted to chocolate. And then people get addicted to watching, just like you get addicted to a abusive relationship, or addicted to porn, or addicted to violence, addicted to junk food, because it takes over the dopamine reward center in your brain. But the thing that supersedes it is that connection to your spirit, to the divine. And when I was 12, I found a book called Natives of Eternity about angels, and it was a book by Flower Newhouse, a Christian minister at the Christ Word Ministry in Escondido, California. And it had all these pictures of angels and the divas of the wind and the divas of birth and death. And it was transformational for me. I read all of Edgar Cayce in my teenage years. And I read a lot of novels by Joan Grant. Every novel was, in fact, a past life of hers. So I went into medicine kind of fully radicalized already.
You have such a beautiful, effervescent spirit. Just your being, you radiate. So I'm so grateful that you are one of the people that has spoken out and for this experience of life beyond the medical profession, but not dissing the medical profession, right? Bringing it in.
Right, exactly. And so, I'm very interested, I've been very interested in the first videos that were coming out, like from the intensive care unit in New York. I can't remember the doctor's name, but he was saying, this is not looking, this is like high altitude pulmonary edema. I don't think people should be on a ventilator. And hundreds of deaths later from being ventilated when you shouldn't have been, because apparently the hospital gets $39,000 for every time a person is ventilated. It's kind of unbelievable, but not, because, you and I have been very active in the informed consent movement. And when you find out that in 1986, Big Pharma was granted complete immunity for any injury that might take place from a vaccine, and then there was a feeding frenzy to patent more and more. So then California and then Maine and New York all passed laws making 69 different vaccines, different shots mandatory for somebody by the age of 18 in order to go to school. And there's no good science behind any of this. But here I am, and I was a complete maverick in OBGYN. I felt that the baby should be put on the mother's abdomen when the baby came out. I felt that we were doing way too many cesarean sections. We have cesarean section. Why? Failure to progress, secondary to CPD. So failure to progress is really failure to wait. And and they've done those studies are in the mainstream medical literature. When are you most apt to have a C-section? 5 at night if you've been laboring, because that's when the doc wants to go home to dinner, or when it's change of shift. This is just the way it is. So I've empowered women for my whole career, for decades, to remember their inner wisdom. My first book, my seminal book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom.
Yes.
What is it I'm doing? I'm teaching women to trust their gut, to trust themselves. Why would you ever trust your baby to medical authorities more than you trust your own gut? That doesn't mean you throw out the medical authority. It means you trust your gut first. Why? Because that baby's whole body, eyes, ears, nose, throat, kidneys, liver, pancreas, was made in your body while you were sleeping. You didn't even have to do anything. I mean, it was just happening. Talk about inner wisdom. My God, if we have that ability, you think any doctor can make an eye? No. I don't care how many degrees from Harvard or Johns Hopkins or whatever they have. And so therefore, I've just noticed over the years, at one point when I was at Women to Women, and we'd started a clinic, for women, by women, to finally give women what they wanted. The truth is only about 5% of my patients could really hear the whole truth because they really wanted to be saved. They wanted to be rescued by somebody. Guess what? The people we have been waiting for are us. You and I are here. We have, work with Maureen McDonald, Millions Against Medical Mandates. We have Dell, we've got RFK Jr., I just did a podcast with Andy Wakefield on women's intuition and that fierce mother bear instinct, where is it? Because if we had that, this whole thing would be over. It would be over.
That's the thing that is very puzzling to me. I don't really quite understand it, because I know the Million Mamas movement, which is my organization, emerged out of this mama bearness, and it was a vision that emerged even before any of this had happened, because I'm like, women, female identified, those that mother, there is an innate wisdom which you so eloquently, I'm pointing to the new book that's coming out, like anybody could see it. I mean, what you have presented and given, and how you have empowered women decades to tap into that power within you, step away from the patriarchy, step away from the misogyny. Like, I bow down to you, Dr. Chris, for having the courage, as Glennon Doyle Melton's book, to be untamed. I like to say to be untamable, right? Like you caught that, you knew that inside, and that's what you've been doing.
That is what I've been doing. And, and at very often great personal price, because I mean, look at Andy Wakefield. Look at what that man has gone through, simply from pointing out, wow, it looks like the MMR is messing with the microbiome of children.
Yes.
Did beautiful research, all of that. I mean, I have been spared that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, I lost my teaching professorship when I published The Wisdom of Menopause.
You did?
Yeah. Just, no. Yeah, there's no reason. We just find you no longer, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I gave back my medical license 2 years ago. It was up for renewal and I gave it back. They can never take the MD. They can never take the board certification. But I didn't want the state medical board to have a noose around my neck. And that was, again, like you, long before this started to happen. I just had this feeling, I don't want them to be able to land on me anymore, because I spent my whole career, watching my back. Because of what Joseph Campbell says, the function of orthodoxy is to create martyrdom for mystics.
I love that.
Yeah. So we're at that place now. We're lighthouses. We need to shine this light and be very compassionate, because the people who are not awake, the people who absolutely believe what they hear on the mainstream media, they are so afraid. They're just coming from fear. And when you have that kind of fear, how awful. You can't sleep at night. I sleep fine because I know where this is going. It's going to go to what Eckhart Tolle calls the new earth. He says that, and I love this, it's from his book, The New Earth. The evolution of a plant is a flower. The evolution of a mineral, or a rock, is a crystal. And the evolution of a human being is Jesus, Lao Tzu, Buddha. That's what we are under pressure to become, a 5D society. And that's what's happening. And this is the process, because it takes heat and pressure to make carbon into a diamond. And that's what we're in the middle of. And these wonderful people are emerging. I mean, once I did the thing in Maine with the Veto 798 group, I created the most incredible community, face-to-face community of people who had that mama bear instinct intact. And there are so many. And, the others own the mainstream narrative, but that's not going to last. And the other thing I'd like to see in the mainstream media, which we'll never see, the hundreds of thousands of people who have recovered. I mean, come on.
Yeah. That somehow that's not being reported.
No, it's just, oh God, we're going to get that second wave and brace for it. And, you're probably going to have to be in lockdown for 18 months so I can give you a vaccine, which probably I already have.
Right. Yes. Well, the times that we are in are absolute pressure for us to rise, for us
they're extraordinary.
The opportunities, and I have great compassion most of the time.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
For people that are so immersed and so entrenched in fear. Like I actually was watching one of your videos, and you were talking about fear and anger, and you were talking about the way that fear manifests, and we're looking at it. And I think the hardest part for me is, as a mom, as a woman, I've always been that question asker. I've always been the one, and sometimes I've been afraid because I know the eyeballs roll, or, oh, there she is again. But how can you be alive, and how can you be a thinking person and not pause and say, but that doesn't make sense? Or why don't I have choice over my body? And why don't I have choice about the baby that I brought into this world, or that I'm mothering? Like, why is this legislator doing that? And why are they touting the same slogan over and over and over again without any substantiation? Like,
none. But you see, that's the hypnotism. So the masses have been hypnotized. And when they wake up, I had somebody on my Facebook page say that as she woke up, she was actually sick for 2 years. She was nauseated by it and I did a little thing, one of those little awakening things was on cognitive dissonance, which anyone can find, by the way, if you go to questioningcovid.com And that's 47 videos from experts all over the world who are questioning the mainstream narrative.
Fantastic.
So I have one on cognitive dissonance. Now, all humans feel most comfortable when what they believe and how they live their lives is completely congruent, right? Mm-hmm. So let's assume that you've been married to someone for 25 years and and you've been trying to please him, and you've been trying to wear your hair the way he likes it, and you've been just trying to make the marriage work because you're a good woman. Right. And you finally realize, wait a minute, I've been married to a frickin' narcissist. He's not going to change. Or, you know, writ large, like that amazing podcast series, Dirty John, about a total sociopath. They're charming. They're good looking. They tell you exactly what you've always wanted to hear. You feel beautiful. You feel safe. But you also, in the back of your mind, you know that you're walking on eggshells because they can turn at any moment. Mm-hmm. So you suddenly wake up and then you think, wait a minute, is it possible that I've been in a relationship, in a marriage for 25 years with a man who doesn't love me, who's not capable of love, to whom I've been giving my lifeblood, my narcissistic supply all these years? Is that a possibility? And it's cognitive dissonance. It feels so bad that you don't know what to do about it. Mm-hmm. So you got a couple choices. One, stand by your man. That's why that Tammy Wynette song has been so popular for so long. Stand by your man, you know, and tell the world you love him. I think she was beaten in her marriage, actually. I don't know. I think so. Or the person telling you that this person is a narcissist is lying.
Right.
So anybody listening who's in a family where there's a borderline or where there's a narcissist or whatever, notice how that person will often control the entire family. Mm. And if you see it and the others don't, they put you out. And they put you out. So that's another way to deal with cognitive dissonance. The third way, the adult way, is to say, oh, I just chalk it up to life. I was wrong. Yeah. I was wrong. I used to believe that, but I don't anymore. And nothing's wrong with me. And I'm not a piece of crap. Right. This is how someone said again on my Facebook page, you posted this thing about Dr. Shiva. Now you're changing your mind. Stop doing this. This is confusing. I said, guess what? I've revised my book several times. The information changes. I hope that you change your mind many times. When we know more, we do more. I mean, when we learn better, we do better.
Yeah, Dr. Maya Angelou said.
That's right. You got it. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. I'm with you 1,000%. Like beyond, I'm so excited over here. It's so wonderful to have this dialogue because everything you're saying is completely accurate. And where does it emanate from? Your wisdom, your intuition, going into yourself to get your wisdom and your guidance, and then going out like you teach. So May 12th, your newly revised book.
Yeah, it's really a new book, I have to say. It's so much change. I'll tell you why. So I'm sitting around, I'm on vacation in Delray Beach in Florida, October 2017. And the news comes, and at that time I had not turned off all the news apps on my phone. So the thing comes out about Harvey Weinstein. And I'm like, oh my God, I actually got a copy of the New York Times. I read the whole thing because this was, for me, such affirmation. In the 80s, when I would talk to women about what was going on in their lives, they would all tell me about the sexual abuse and the incest and the beating and the rapes. And these were middle-class people. And no one believed me. No one believed them. I believed them. But my colleagues said, I only see normal women. You see the crazy women. And so and then the Me Too movement happened. And I thought, hallelujah, hallelujah. We have finally awakened as a culture. And then I felt compelled to, just start to finish. And that's a 900-page book. Just revise and update the whole thing. But this time, without any trying very hard to make sure there was a study for everything. And you and I both know for every study that says this thing, you can find another that says the opposite. Just like right now, We have Judy Mikovits being bashed all over the media because, you know, they've just decided, okay, don't pay any attention to the man behind the screen there.
Oh.
Anyway, so I just felt compelled to revise it. It's the post-Me Too version. And, you know, it just sort of bookends my career. So the first one came out in '94. I was afraid to go into the hospital. I was afraid to go to grand rounds. I was sure that I would lose my license, you know, and all of that stuff. So now it's like gloves are off. I don't care. This is my truth. And at this point, you see, we have enough, it's trickled down into the generations. So the women who were given this book by their mothers for their high school graduation are now entering menopause. So we have this higher vibration around this material. I mean, when I said back then that the menstrual cycle was associated with your cycle of creativity and that you could trust it and tune in, or when I went on to, Oprah's friend there, Gail, you know, with the wisdom of menopause, she goes, wisdom of menopause, are you kidding? It's just hot flashes and it's horrible. And, you know, you could tell, she was like, you're the biggest nutcase I've had on this show ever. And that's sort of been my career. Well, now, you know, my own daughter, Kate, has an entire business which is oriented around the lunar menstrual cycle and how to be maximally productive through. And I remember her calling me. I was given a lecture in Las Vegas, and I get off the plane. She calls me. I'm going to baggage claim. And she's saying, okay, now, Mom, what happens in this phase? What happens from the time you get your period till ovulation? Yes, honey, that's the follicular phase. Okay, then ovulation. What's this one? That's the luteal phase. Now, what's funny is this is the same kid who, when she got her period at the age of 12, says to me, you're not going to have any of your friends come over here and bless me, are you? So that's how things have changed, you know? Now it's like
wonderful.
Yeah, she's great.
And I know you have another daughter as well. Yeah,
I do, Annie. Yes, yes. And luckily for me, she's home from Brooklyn at this time. I told her get out of New York when I thought they were going to close it down.
Yeah.
So she's been here for a long time now, which is
that's
nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so great. Well, I love that you did that. My daughter did not want me to do that. I wanted to do it, and she said to me, don't do that. Don't have your friends come. Don't do that. I said, okay, because I'm that mom too. So, yeah.
But now what'll be really interesting to see what she does with her children, with her daughters, because now there's a much bigger community. Yes. And if there's a community, because they're very influenced by their peers at that age. Yeah. So if there's a peer community, and there is now, then it's wonderful. Then it's just fine. You know, like with the Navajo women, that is one of the biggest celebrations. But the whole tribe is involved. Yeah. So, you know, you and I can't take our daughters and make examples of them for the whole community. Like, you know, she used to say to me, why can't you be like the other mothers? And I couldn't. And then, you know, the two of us, here's what happened for her. She didn't want to say anything about the vaccines and be labeled and be that mother and be shunned at daycare, you know, all of the stuff. And then she heard about the toxicity of aluminum. And and especially in a 5G environment where the body becomes an antenna. Mm-hmm. And that was her Rubicon. I can't, okay, I have to say something. Yeah. So she started to ask me about the research, and we did a YouTube video, you know, like the 5 myths.
It was so wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Then she'd update all the information, and it seemed so logical to her. But again, she went to daycare, and one of the mothers shunned her, you know, like, oh God, you know, your kids are putting my kids at risk. That is the most bass-ackwards argument. If vaccines worked, why would you be worried? It makes no sense. And also the narrative now, if you care about your freedom and you care about your job, you're selfish.
I know.
We should all just stay in. And, you know, meanwhile, Cuomo down in New York is finding all these people coming in with COVID who've been sheltering in place for 2 months, because you cannot get rid of a virus that way. So the new tracking in Ventura County, or our governor came out with, everyone has to wear a mask. We know from the Surgeon General, all that does is increase your risk for viruses. Yeah. Doesn't do anything. So I'm about at the place where I'm going to print out those ADA recommendations, like you cannot ask me what my medical condition is that I cannot wear a mask. And, you know, my medical condition is it chokes my freedom of speech. But, you know, sometimes I wear a mask because, you know, I don't want to be the one that, you know, makes people uncomfortable. Like I'm going to a birthday party today and it's outdoors and everyone's going to stay 6 feet apart because the woman giving the party is afraid. Okay, I will honor that. I will honor that as another human being. But do I think it's necessary? Absolutely not. Not at all. In fact, we need, for biodiversity, which gives us an enormous immunity, we need to be involved with other people. And, you know, and COVID and H1N1 and HIV and all of that, most of us have been exposed to that stuff in our microbiome. But if it's healthy, if it's biodiverse, everything will take care of itself. But what we've done, and this is the work of Zach Bush, who's one of my heroes, we have completely messed up our microbiome. I've heard that Americans have 13% of the biodiversity of Africans in the rural areas. So, you know, we've got some work to do. We've got to stop the factory farming, the monoculture, and we need to get over our fear of death, because that's the real biggie. That's why everyone is terrified. They're just terrified of dying. I'm not terrified of dying. I'm also not terrified of COVID. I never was. I just, germs have never bothered me as a, you know, this contagion thing. Notice, I think I read it was Bill Gates who funded the movie COVID that came out on Netflix right around the same time. I mean, you have to be really have your head in the sand to not see how it's all stacking up. I mean, starting with the big measles thing in Disneyland. Yeah. I mean, what, 17-20% of those people had the measles from the vaccine. Yeah. And here I am as a grandmother, and if I could find a case of wild measles, you can be sure I would have my grandkids exposed to it. And what we used to do, the baby boomers, someone had chicken pox, everyone went there. Let's all get it over with. Same with measles. Right. Yeah. And now we know the kids who are the sickest are the ones who get the whooping cough vaccine, the DPT, because pertussis has morphed. That's from, you know, that's the old Jeff Goldblum line in Jurassic Park. These are all females. Nature always finds a way. Then you hear the big ba-boom, you know. So, and it's fast. Nature moves fast. So we're, you know, we are in the 6th extinction, the extinction of species, the extinction of all kinds of bugs. And this is what is going to create a new species. And my friend Alberto Villotto, who runs the Four Winds Society, he's a shaman. Yeah. He says the new species will be Homo luminous, light-based species. Ooh. Yeah.
So if we're going to be light-based, I mean, we are light beings. If we're going to if we're going to evolve into that, is that because of, let's say, Elon Musk's desire for us to be half AI, half human, the transhumanism?
No, that won't be it. It'll be because we wake up to our power, our real power that they are so afraid of. Yeah. They're so afraid of it. Okay, if you're David Icke, let's say, and you get 9 million views on his London Real thing, and they have to take it down immediately, I listen to him and he goes, I must be the most powerful man in the world if they're that afraid of what I have to say. And then, you know, we got Plandemic. That was funny. That's like whack-a-mole. Every time they'd take down Plandemic, it would come up in another form. Yeah. It came up on Vimeo. They took that down. There was plandemicthemovie.com. They took that down. It's now on BitChute. But I mean, it's at this point, if you want to know where the truth is, just try to find what they have just recently censored. Well, it's so obvious.
Yeah, I interviewed Judy Mikovits.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and I had it up on YouTube, and it was, I mean, like, and I was getting people constantly contacting me, loving it. They're so happy I did it, la, la, la. They took it down. I contacted them. I tried to post it again various ways, various titles, 12 times.
Yes, yes, that's
And
right.
each time violates community guidelines, violates, and I thought, there's nothing in there. What she talked about was Fauci. What she talked about was the mask. What she
Yeah,
talked about was the corruption.
yeah,
And 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 it was just a violation because, oh my God, don't let truth get out. We've got to curate it. We've got to make sure that we are feeding everybody what we want them to think. And just that alone, Dr. Chris, just the idea that you are being told what to think
yeah.
should set off alarms.
It should. It should. But you see what they believe. This is how good they've been at this narrative. It's very, very effective. And that is, your behavior is putting me at risk. You're selfish.
Yeah.
That's how we got the vaccine mandates in Maine, New York, California. Your irresponsibility is putting my child at risk. So Kate's talked to people who said, well, I wouldn't ordinarily get a flu shot, but I really want to protect my neighbors, even though we know there's no vaccine that prevents the spread of infection. It doesn't do that. You can still be infected. So that's the narrative is just wrong, but people, they live and die by their beliefs. And remember, cognitive dissonance is so uncomfortable. I read a funny tweet. This guy goes, it's very hard to come out of the closet as gay. Imagine coming out of the closet as gay and a Trump supporter. He said, I'm both. I loved it. I thought it was so funny.
I have
Really
to
funny.
send you a link to this guy who did this hilarious, everybody should believe the media. It was a
Oh,
satire.
that's JP Sears,
Oh, you know
right?
him? Yes.
Yeah, his stuff was hilarious. It was
Oh my,
so funny. So funny.
it was really
Yeah.
great. Well, it's so enlivening to have this dialogue with you because it just, I mean, you're in Maine, I'm in California. It just supports the whole premise that we are waking up, that there
Yes.
is an awakening. I'm seeing more people speak out, people that I'm actually really surprised about, that when I was involved with the release of Vaxxed, and because, you know, more than anything, I've been supporting moms and supporting parents in raising children with compassion and kindness and consciousness for 19 years. And so, right. And so for me, when one of my clients told me about SB 277, I just thought, okay, wait, everything I do is about choice,
Yeah.
heightened awareness,
Right.
nonviolence. How can we support a parent who wants to live like this and compromising their ethics, for lack of a better word, or integrity, their desire to really have a healthy child? And then we've got all these parents concerned about ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities, intestinal issues, more severe issues, and not inform them. If you want to do this after you have been educated and informed,
Great.
your
Well,
choice.
informed consent. It's just basic
Exactly.
informed consent. Before I did a laparoscopy for a tubal ligation or a uterine fibroid or everything, we went through the whole informed consent.
Wow.
Always. With this, there's no informed consent whatsoever, not to mention there's no testing. I mean, giving 6 different vaccines at the same time. And then the myopia, let's talk about cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
You're a doctor, you're a nurse, you just give the kids 6 shots. They come in that night with seizures. And everyone goes, well, it's not the vaccines. Or they just died of SIDS, but they just had 6 vaccines the day before. Oh, we're so sorry. Kids die of sudden infant death syndrome. This to me is criminal.
Yeah.
It's criminal, and I watched it up in our state house in Augusta. I just watched it, where people sat there like they were automatons. It was like they didn't hear story after story after story after story. Here's one. after we failed to overturn the mandate, one of the women said, well, my son has 1 year left at a university, and he needs to get, with the new law, he needs to get an MMR in order to complete his senior year. However, he's deathly allergic to 2 ingredients in the MMR, and he could have seizures or anaphylaxis. Do you know what the doctors told him? Then he should have the shot in the emergency room so that if he requires resuscitation, we're all ready for it. Okay, now that,
What
okay,
is that?
yeah, that's nuts. That's what that is.
I mean, the Hippocratic Oath.
Well, that's what I said. I took it very seriously. So imagine, I had to give up my medical license to be able to be free to tell you the truth.
Yes.
We had a panel of medical professionals here in Maine, and we had one guy who talked about the fact of why doctors who know this don't speak up, because they will lose their livelihood. Mm-hmm. And oh, here's what was happening. I have a good friend who's a pediatric cardiologist. When you go into the clinic, your rating as a doctor is actually determined by how many vaccines you've given. Oh yeah. So that's, like your Yelp rating as a doctor has to do with the fact, that how many vaccines you gave. That's how, and your pay grade is sometimes determined by that. So you're in a family system where you just can't survive unless you pretend you don't know this stuff. Yeah. And so you go along. Hey, I went along with doing circumcisions. I always hated it. I always knew it was wrong, but it was part of my job. Mm-hmm. Now my vibration is such that I couldn't do that if my life depended on it. Yeah. I can't even believe people are still doing it. Yeah. I just can't. I can't believe it. But, one of the things, if you're a healer type like you are, is we have to realize, it's very sobering, we have to realize we cannot create in someone else's life. They have free will and they have to do it. And there's nothing we could do. Sometimes, we think about, all right, how can I soften the message? How can I be more loving? Maybe this video will do it. Maybe that video, really. Yeah. I mean, I think, I used to think that if I gave people exactly the right study that proved it, that would change something. It doesn't. It doesn't. They wake up when they're ready. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Although I've had 2 men in my life, one doctor and one journalist, and I've sent them things, but they know me well. Yeah. And one said, Pizzagate that's a scam. Don't tell me about Pizzagate and blah, blah, blah. I finally sent him, what's that, Out of Shadows Official, that amazing movie. And I said, so what do you think of Pizzagate now? Yeah. He goes, yeah. Oh. And I have to say, I do believe that whole thing with children is going to come out. That's going to come out and probably unify the country. That's what I think, because everyone will be so horrified.
I'm going to hold that. Whoops. Right. I'm going to hold that absolutely with you for sure. I was thinking the other day, in the midst of all this pandemic and the quarantines and the news briefings and all the latest breaking news, what about those babies and children that are at the border? What about the immigrant? We're not hearing anything about these people that were put in cages trying to escape.
I'm not sure that they were. I'm not sure that they were. I have looked at other stuff. Okay. And I've even seen footage. Okay. That is very hard to refute, where people were paid to be actors.
But you know what? I saw that same thing, but you know what? I did some Googling. I did some research about that. Yeah. And they gave them those wristbands to determine who was from where.
Interesting.
And because I watched that video series, and I took notes because one of my friends sent it to me, and I started, in my mind, I'm like, okay, let me write this down. I got to research this. So I found that wasn't the case. They weren't doing media. Now, not to say that there aren't people that wouldn't do that, but I mean,
again, I think where it has to go is into this place of enormous compassion. Who
Mhm.
are we as people? In
Yes.
Florida now, if you're having a baby, you can't take anyone with you. You got to birth alone. Now, I don't know if that's every hospital, but one of my friends, her sister is about to give birth and she wants to be there, but they won't let her or the father of the baby into the room. And they're also in hospitals separating the mothers and the babies. At this most crucial time of bonding, a sensitive period that has been so well studied, that's how you disrupt the family unit. And when I talked with
Yes.
Andy Wakefield, we talked about that. He said pediatricians um, are some of the most unfeeling people because they don't believe babies feel this pain. That was
Mm,
his experience, that they can, that the American Academy of Pediatrics will not come out against circumcision, for
right.
instance, that which has no medical reason. They won't say anything about giving a baby 6 injections. They all hurt.
Yeah.
Pain is part of our guidance system. So I don't know, about the border and all that. I know that what we have to do as humans is we need to really up the compassion
Yes.
for the beginning of life and the end of life. Because what the other thing that's happening because of fear, I have a friend who works in a nursing home. She said people are dying from loneliness.
Yeah.
They don't, no one's coming to visit them. They're dying alone. This is a travesty of
It,
being human. And we do that in the name of protecting each other? I don't
yeah,
think
can
so.
I don't think so either. That was my point about the compassion, about
Yes,
these not knowing what's happening to these children. And I, because you are so educated and trained and spiritual and steeped in human connection and the spirit, mind, body, spirit connection, what I think about is trauma, and I think about brain development, and I think about the impact, attachment. So many people in the world have attachment issues to begin with, like not even
yes,
like even before this pandemic. And now at the, like you were saying, at that pivotal time, birth, where the attachment, the brain develops by that attachment. You're
yes.
separating people, and then people are making their transition by themselves, or children are in hospitals by themselves. So we're having, we are complicit. All of us are complicit, the ones that are not speaking up. We are
Yes,
complicit in perpetuating trauma on an entire civilization.
that's right. That's right. I was listening to a channeled video from Cryon, and he said probably what's going to happen is years from now, they'll look back and they'll see that the mortality rate dipped. And everyone will say, oh, yeah, that was the coronavirus. Now, if you look at the mortality statistics for this year compared to, say, 2017, 2018, 2019, it's lower. The death rate is overall lower, mainly
Yeah.
because no one's having elective procedures. I mean, we know that medical mistakes are the third leading cause of death in the
Mm,
United States.
mm.
Well, nobody's dying from those things. And it's, 0.001% are dying from COVID. So, but what everyone's really dying of is fear.
Yeah.
Fear does a number on the immune system, and it makes you more susceptible to everything. The other thing that's not a good idea is sanitizing every surface. Lysol, and someone just posted that they went to get a haircut and the barber sprayed Lysol everywhere. It got under his mask and he could barely breathe. I mean, imagine
Wow.
breathing in Lysol. And that changes the microbiome of your skin. And we know that those who use hand sanitizers, what happens is nature finds a way. So it's
Mm.
going to develop germs that are more powerful and they get around it. So we need to create a biodiverse environment, and then the baddies are kept in check naturally. It's like, women with douching. You don't need to douche because the vaginal microbiome keeps the yeast and keeps the all the other stuff, the bacteria, in control, and you don't get an infection. You only get an infection when something's off from too much stress or too much sugar, too
Mm.
much alcohol, or the wrong guy. Yeah.
So, so, so with regard to cycles and to the body somatizing all of this stress, do you think that people's cycles are off, or people, I would imagine, what can people do, young ones who maybe are having forms of amenorrhea,
Yeah.
middle and older, well, the one, even the post, because even when you're post menopause, you've got stuff going
Yeah,
on.
you're
Like,
still with the moon. You're still
yeah,
cycling with the moon. Yeah, yeah.
right. So,
So what everyone needs to do is they need to find, they need to get the parasympathetic nervous system upregulated. And you can do that most easily through the breath. So you breathe in through your nose, out through your nose. You can do a 5-cycle breathing twice a day. So you just go in, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you do that for 5 minutes, you will be in an altered state at the end. So I would do that regularly, just the breath stuff. Qigong, a lot of my friends have been doing Qigong. Just look for Qigong videos online. Then being outside, standing on the ground, standing on Mother Earth. If you have one little patch in a park, do that. Also sunlight, really, really important, because vitamin D kills the virus, and those who have optimal levels are far less likely to die of this thing. And watch funny stuff. Give yourself just a certain amount of time to watch the news. If you want to watch mainstream media, I never do. I don't read the New York Times. I don't read the Washington Post. I just don't. And I haven't for years and years and years. But I do watch the alternative things on YouTube. I follow some spiritual teachers, Elizabeth April, Magenta Pixie, Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon, getting the big picture from on high. And that's how I get through it. And I also know this time has been foretold by the wisdom traditions forever, forever. I mean, if you look at what the astrologers say, this is the Pluto return of the United States. This is where all men are created equal, and the Bill of Rights gets upgraded to include women and transgendered and Black people and Hispanics. This is what we're doing, where, it's for everybody, everybody. But you got to get over that, that unfortunately, that liberal agenda. You need to suffer to protect me. This is just, it's anti-life. It's anti-life. There is no culture, there's no medical system ever that has quarantined totally healthy people to protect the sick. It does not make any sense, and it isn't working anyway. But so therefore we know there's another agenda that has nothing to do with public health. Nothing. Has to do with control. Yeah.
yes. Well, thank you so much for that. I could just talk to you for hours and hours, and I hope to. And so thank you for being here. I want everybody to please, May 12th, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, the new and updated book by Dr. Christiane Northrup is out. Please follow her. You can go to Instagram at Dr. Christiane, so it's CHRISTIANE, Northrup, for those of you that don't know her, and Facebook, same. And I want to thank you so much for your courage, for your wisdom, for your heart and your spirit, and for all that you have done for decades to help women rise and embody their own inner wisdom.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah,
what a pleasure.
absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Many blessings to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have fun at the party.
I will.
Okay.